Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Pagkatapos po natin na mag-ipagdiwang ang ika-500 taon ng pagdating ng pananampalatayang Kristiyano sa dalampasigan natin, ano na ngayon ang gagawin natin? Mabuti po at binigyan tayo ng paraan ng ating Santo Papa na tayo ay maging isang synodal church. Pagsisikap po natin ngayon na isabuhay ito. Ano bang katangian ng synodal church? Ito ay dapat isang simbahan na may partisipasyon. Nagpa-participate ang mga tao sa gawain ng simbahan, lahat ng mga binyagan. At dahil sa partisipasyon, nagkakaroon ng community, communion, nagkakaisa sila. At ito po, ang communion natin ay patungo sa misyon. Pagpapatuloy po ang misyon ng simbahan sa pagpapahayag. Kaya ngayon po, pag-aralan natin itong tatlong katangiang ito na kinukuha po ang pangyayari ng dalawang alagad habang sila'y naglalakbay papuntang Emmaus noong linggo ng muling pagkabuhay. Dito po, sinamahan sila ni Jesus. Nakilakbay ang Panginoon sa kanila sa daan. At yan po ang ibig sabihin ng synod. We have just finished our celebration of the 500 years of the coming of Christianity in our land. And so, we look beyond. After this celebration, what? And this celebration has made us realize that our church in the Philippines should walk as a synodal church and as a Filipino church. We continue to form a Filipino and synodal Catholic Church. And in order to do that, let us just concentrate first in synodality as a way of Jesus walking with us. It's a basic concept about synodality that is taken from the resurrection story about Jesus walking with his disciples going to Emmaus. But let us have some general ideas first about synodality. Synod is a Greek word which means sama-samang paglalakbay sa daan. We walk together along the way. And the logo that we have coming from Rome about this synod is very telling. That we see different kinds of people. Children, young people, the aged, the handicapped, bishops, popes, sisters, young people, we journey as one. That is synod. And the main theme for the synod is a synodal church, communion, participation, and mission. So 3 important elements of the synodal church are being stressed: communion, participation, and mission. The target date for this Synod of Bishops will be in October 2023. And we opened this synodal process last October of 2021. So, It's a 2-year preparation for the celebration of the synod. And the fundamental question that everybody are being asked in the world in preparation for this synod is the following. As a synodal church, we announce the gospel. We journey together as a synodal church. How is this journeying together happening today? In our own particular churches, in our own religious communities, in our own schools. How is this journeying together happening today? And what steps does the Spirit of God invite us to take in order to grow in our journeying together? We believe that this journeying together is not only a sociological reality. It's not only a sociological challenge, but it is the Spirit of God that is asking us to journey together. So what is the Spirit telling us so that we can grow in our journeying together? That's why we need to listen to each other more fully. Now, this process of the synodal process is to be taken in prayer, reflection, and sharing. In prayer, because we have to be attuned not only to the participants, but especially to the prayer, to the Spirit of God. And reflection, we need to reflect on what we hear, on what we experience. But also we need to share, because we are not just getting information, we are living a life of sharing together. So prayer, reflection, and sharing, all done in order to listen to what the Spirit is saying to us, to where God's Spirit is leading us. That's why we need to pray, we need to reflect, we need to share. And there are levels of attitudes and styles of persons and communities that we have to share. So we have to listen to people, to communities. But also we have to analyze structures and processes. Because the Spirit can lead us through persons, through groups, but the Spirit also can lead us by examining our own organizations, the processes that we do in our own work. So all of these have to be examined. Also, we have to view two perspectives. One is the internal life of the church and the institutions of the church. This is the ad intra journeying together. How are the clergy and the lay people working together? How are the parishes working together? The institutions of the church. So the internal life of the church, we listen and we analyze and we pray as we examine these internal workings that we are doing. But it's not just within the church, because the church journeys with the whole human family. So we are also journeying with the non-Christians. We are also journeying with the lapsed Christians. So we have also to see the extra journeying together that we are doing, whether we like it or not. We are not just alone in the world. So we have to see the perspective of the church, within the church, ad intra. We have also to see how we are related, how we are journeying together with the people outside of the church, ad extra journeying together. The aim of the whole process is not just to get data and information, but to foster a lived experience of discernment, participation, and co-responsibility, where the diversity of gifts is brought together for the mission of the church in the world. So this is not just an academic activity or a research activity that we are after data. Probably we already know the data, but it is fostering a lived experience as church, as we travel together, that we appreciate the diversity that we are in, that we are able to treasure the differences and the likenesses that we have together, and to harness all of this for the mission of the church in the world. So the mode of what we do in this synodal process is dialogue mode. Dialogue mode, because we believe that each member of the faithful and all Christian communities are called to practice dialogue, although not always in the same degree or in the same way. But it is in dialogue that we proclaim the good news. We dialogue among ourselves. We dialogue also with the people outside of the church. And in so doing, we strengthen the identity of the church. In general, the whole process, starting from October 2021 and beyond, could be divided into three. First, there is the preparatory process, the preparation. From October 2021 up to March 2023. And during this preparatory process, we want to get the feel of the people, the experience of the people from below. So we have the synodal process in our small communities of BECs, small communities of different lay organizations. And then we gather them in the parish. We have the parish synodal process. Then we do them in the diocese. Then we do them nationally, as a national church, as a nation here in the Philippines. What could be our experience? And then the continental phase, Asia, Africa, South America, North America, Europe, Middle East, continental phases. So these are the preparation. That's why it takes a long time, from October 21 to March 23. And then the celebration phase, which is October 2023 in Rome. Selected people, bishops and other auditors will be invited in Rome, probably about 300-350 people, to celebrate this synodal process as a universal church. And then from this meeting, there will be publications of the post-synodal apostolic exhortation that will come out, and we will now have the implementation phase. We will implement together what we have discovered from this 2-year process. So we are still in the preparation stage and looking forward to the celebration stage and ready for the implementation. We have to take note that Pope Francis wants the process to start from below. That's why it takes a long time. We have the main guide question and several other questions to be discussed in the local level. And hopefully the output could be reflective of the situations of the local churches. That's why we have to listen carefully, even to children, even to the uneducated, even to the lapsed Catholics, even to the non-Catholics, about where the Spirit is leading us. And the Pope advises us to allow those in the existential peripheries, including the dropouts from the church, to be able to participate in the consultation process. So those who are in the peripheries, those who don't belong now to the regular life of the church, that they are also to be consulted. We have to go out and reach out to them to hear also what the Spirit could be speaking to us through them. And to make the process truly synodal, and this is precisely what synodality is, being together, we have to include all. Not only listen to those to whom we want to listen, but also to those who, sad to say, are very much in the byways. So this is the process that we will undergo. Now, in this talk, I'd like to concentrate on the incident of the post-resurrection story when Jesus walked with two disciples going to Emmaus. And this is found in Luke 24. I will go through the passage, and then along the way, we reflect on what this passage is telling us. So Luke 24, this is Sunday afternoon, Sunday of the resurrection. Now, that very day, two of them were going to a village 7 miles from Jerusalem called Emmaus. So leaving Jerusalem, remember that in the Gospel of Luke, Jerusalem was the point where Jesus was going to. It is in Jerusalem that his mission would be fulfilled. So two disciples were leaving Jerusalem, leaving the mission of Jesus, going to Emmaus. And they were conversing about all the things that have occurred. All the things that have occurred since they entered Jerusalem. They will triumphantly met by the people, the teachings of Jesus in Jerusalem, the Last Supper, then the agony in the garden, and Jesus was brought to the Sanhedrin and in front of Pilate, the crucifixion, and even the resurrection. That morning, the experience of the resurrection, they were discussing along the way. And it happened that while they were conversing and debating, so they were not just sharing information, probably it was also a little bit heated, trying to understand what's happening, Jesus drew near and walked with them. Note that this is the initiative of Jesus. He walked with them. But their eyes were prevented from recognizing him, and probably prevented by their own sadness, by their own personal concerns, or they did not pay enough attention to Jesus, to that stranger who walked with them. They were preoccupied with their own problem, so they were not able to recognize the one who is coming. He asked them, "What are you discussing as you walk along?" They stopped, looking downcast. So again, it was Jesus who initiated to join the group. It was Jesus who initiated to enter into the conversation. And the mood is given to us by the text. They looked at him downcast. They were not happy. They were not excited. One of them, named Cleopas, said to him in reply, "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know of the things that have taken place there in these days?" So there was a hesitancy on the part of Cleopas to open up to Jesus, because this is supposed to be known already. Where are you? No, you don't know what's happening in Jerusalem. It's all people talking about this. And he replied to them, what sort of things? Jesus insisted, even in front of a seeming rebuke, the hesitancy of Cleopas. He insisted, what sort of things? They said to him, the things that happened to Jesus, the Nazarene, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people. So this is how they saw Jesus, the one coming from Nazareth. But he was mighty in word and deed. And how our chief priests and rulers both handed him over to a sentence of death and crucified him. So they have identified those who pushed for him to be put to death, the leaders and the rulers, chief priests and rulers, handed him over because they could not have him sentenced to death. They handed him over, did not even state to whom. But we were hoping that he would be the one to redeem Israel. And besides all this, it is now the third day since this took place. So by having Jesus killed and buried, somehow they also had their hopes buried about Jesus. And this is on the third day. Some women from our group, however, have astounded us. They were at the tomb early in the morning, that morning. So on the third day, these women suddenly surprised them, astounded them with the news. But they did not find his body. They came back and reported that they had indeed seen a vision of angel who announced that he was alive. This is the surprising thing. They did not see the body, but there were angels and the news that he was alive. Then some of those with us went to the tomb and found things just as the women had described, but him they did not see. This is something new. What the women said were not just a women's story. They were true. And yet, they did not see the body. So, notice that the disciples had all the elements of the story. The data were correct. And yet, they did not see the good news. And Jesus said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are! How slow of heart to believe all that the prophet spoke." Now it was the turn of Jesus to speak to them after having allowed them to express themselves. Now Jesus told them, still the same problem, slow to believe, lack of faith, that all of this have been spoken of by the prophets. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and enter into his glory? Whereas they identified Jesus of Nazareth. Here Jesus was speaking about the Messiah. He is not just Jesus of Nazareth, he is the Messiah. That he should suffer these things and enter into his glory. Then beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them what referred to him in all the scriptures. They had a Bible study along the way, coming from Moses and the prophets. He opened their eyes to what Moses and the prophets were speaking about the Messiah, that he should suffer and enter his glory, the Paschal mystery. As they approached the village to which they were going, he gave the impression that he was going on further. so that he had other business to do. He gave that impression. But the disciples were just wanting to go to Emmaus. But they urged him, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening, and the day is almost over." Now, these two disciples, who at the beginning were hesitant to allow Jesus to walk with them and to speak with them, now are eager that he stay with them. And there's even a little bit of concern. It is almost evening. The day is over. So he went in to stay with them. Hindi naman si Jesus mahirap imbitahan. And it happened that while he was with them at table, he took bread, said the blessing, broke it, and gave it to them. Now, there is an inversion of roles. Jesus was invited as a guest, but here, he was the host. He took the bread, broke it, blessed it, and gave it to them. And these are the languages of the Eucharist, of the Last Supper. He took, he blessed, he broke, and gave to them. With that, their eyes were opened and they recognized him. And he vanished from their sight. But they were walking probably for 3 hours or 2 hours. Jesus was explaining to them. And yet, they did not recognize him. Only in the Eucharist were their eyes opened. But once they recognized him, he vanished from them. Probably telling them, "You don't need me anymore. You have the bread with you." Then they said to one another, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he spoke to us on the way and opened the scriptures to us?" Were not our hearts burning? So this is the result of the Bible study. No, their being downcast was little by little being changed, no, by excitement, by joy, as he explained to us on the way the scriptures to us. So they set out at once and returned to Jerusalem, where they found together gathered the 11 and those with them. We could just imagine, they were leaving Jerusalem, downcast. They were walking slowly. And yet, when they came back from Emmaus, they were running, rushing. That same evening, probably what it took them 2 hours, 3 hours to walk from Jerusalem to Emmaus, they covered in less than 30 minutes going back. And they found the 12. Who were saying, "The Lord has truly been raised and has appeared to Simon." They confirmed their own experience. Is truly risen. Then the two recounted what had taken place on the way, and how he was made known to them in the breaking of the bread. So they identified the moment that he came to know them, that they came to know him, at the breaking of the bread. So this is the story. Now let us analyze the story a bit more. Synod literally means walking along the way. So here, Jesus walked along the way with the disciples. Jesus not only was walking along the way, but he initiated and he led the synodal process. He was not just walking along, but he initiated the synodal process. First, he joined the two in their journey. Nagpumilit siya na sumama sa dalawa. Hindi naman siya invited. But he joined them. He inserted himself in their conversation. He asked probing questions, even if there was hesitancy among his companions. Siya nagpumilit. Hindi lang siya nagpumilit na makilakbay, pumilit siya na makiisa sa kanilang pag-uusap. He wanted them to speak out, to bring out their problems and their fears. The problem with many in our consultations in the synodal process is not only that some are not ready to listen, but there are many who are not ready to speak. Either they don't know how to speak, or they don't trust their companions, or they don't have the courage to speak out. So Jesus had to probe, had to initiate, had to draw out from them, what things are you talking about? Then there is also the teaching moment. After they express themselves, now the teaching moment that Jesus had to explain to them from the scriptures. Probably he was not telling them something new about the Bible, but he let them see what they already know from a new light. What they said had the elements of the good news, but they did not see it as good news until it was enlightened by the scriptures. And the conversation, later on they admitted, warmed their hearts. And not only warmed their hearts, but warmed their relationship with each other. The two now were becoming willing companions. At the beginning, they were unwilling to take him in, but now they were the ones to invite him. And not only that, but they showed a bit of concern. It's nearly evening. It's already dark. Come, stay with us. Have dinner with us. And although he is the invited guest, Jesus played the host for them, the Eucharist. He took the bread, he blessed the bread, he broke the bread, he gave it to them. And they recognized this. That's why they said, our eyes were opened at the breaking of the bread. Only then did they realize. In the experience of the Eucharist, their eyes were opened. They recognized the Lord. Their sadness and skepticism prevented them from recognizing him. But the scriptures and the eating together and the Eucharist opened their eyes. And recognizing the Lord, they came back to the community which they left. They came back with eagerness, as I've said, probably running back in the dead of the night. That very night, they were so excited, they could not wait for another day. They had to go back to the community. And they proclaimed the good news. We have seen the Lord. And the good news is something that they experienced. He broke the bread. He broke the word to us. They became witnesses. And it was the community who confirmed their experience. He is indeed risen. He appeared to Peter. We see here the three main moments of our synodal process: participation, communion, and mission. First, Jesus had to go out of his way to bring participation, even to the hesitant and those who do not want to listen. He went out of his way. Is this not also our experience in the synodal process? We have to break their silence. We have to insist that they come and join with us and that they have to speak out. Now the communion was brought about by Word and Eucharist. Their hearts warmed to each other as he was explaining, interpreting the scriptures to them. And they recognized him at the breaking of the bread, the Word and the Eucharist. That's why we say that this is not a research project. It is an experience of faith. And then the mission is done with eagerness. It is a witnessing. They went back that very night. So, participation, Jesus walked and journeyed with them, asked questions, allowed them to speak. Communion, Jesus explained the scriptures. Jesus broke the bread to them. Mission, once they experienced the Lord, they went back to the community and proclaimed Him to them. Now, we can see ourselves here from 2 points of view. We can see ourselves as the 2 disciples. They start from experience. Also, we take the people from where they are. Jesus walked with them and asked about their problems. We can see ourselves as the 2 disciples discouraged, disillusioned, leaving the group, probably leaving the church, leaving the community, perplexed about what's happening in the world, what's happening at this time of the pandemic, what's happening in the church. We can see ourselves here, discouraged, not enthusiastic, leaving the purpose and perplexed. But we can also see ourselves as Jesus, nakikisiksik, insisting, nakikisiksik sa grupo, nakikisiksik sa usapan. We can see ourselves as Jesus, nakikinig, gustong malaman, ano bang pinag-uusapan? And we can see ourselves as Jesus, gumagabay, nagbibigay ng kaliwanagan mula sa salita ng Diyos, mula sa mga sakramento. Communion means communion with the Word, communion with the Eucharist, communion with the community. So there can be no synodal process without the Word. It is the Word that will enlighten us, that will give meaning to our perplexities. Kaya kailangan natin ng Word of God, to listen to the Word of God. Communion with the Word. Communion with the Eucharist. Or communion with the sacraments. That we are able to serve, to come close to the Lord, to accept Him. But communion with the Word and communion with the Eucharist leads us to communion with the community. They came back to the community of faith, to the 11 and those who were with them. And it is the community who will help us confirm our experience to them. This is our communion. And the result of the process, we are energized. We become more committed. Remember, the two disciples, they were discouraged. They were leaving the group, leaving their commitment to follow Jesus because they did not understand all these things about His suffering, death, and resurrection. But they end up energized, being with the 12 again. So in our own synodal process, we also have this experience. I don't know if you have already done or participated in the synodal process in your own local churches. But the process does not end because we have produced a document. The process continues. We remain a synodal church. So this experience that we had about the synod, somehow forced on us because of the directive from Rome, should be a continuous experience now. That we always allow participation. And this participation leads to communion. And the reason for our communion is not just fellowship. It's not just to feel good together. But it is that we may be more eager to do the mission of proclaiming that Jesus is alive and stays with us.